Hello and welcome to another episode of the Strikecast. Since we last spoke, we've updates on the interim manager. It looks like Ralf Rangnick is coming in till the end of the season and then going upstairs on a 2-year contract as a consultant to the Glazers and to Richard Arnold and possibly Ed Woodward too. Joining me this morning is Brian Murphy, who was at the game in Villarreal during the week, and we'll get onto that as well. But Brian, firstly, the interim position is now being filled. We'll have an appointment in the next 48 hours, hopefully. But when this news first came out, when Manchester United announced that to replace Solskjaer, they had a plan of an interim boss till the end of the season and then a permanent successor in the summer. Now, the initial reaction to that was quite negative because interim isn't a popular buzzword amongst fans. But this Rangnick appointment, it's certainly changed the mood a little bit. Would you agree with that?
It has, yeah. I mean, the shell shock of Ole getting released from his job, I suppose we all knew it was coming, but when it actually did happen, it was a bit of a surprise all the same. I suppose it's a weird enough thing to say, something's coming, but to be surprised by it is strange. But there was a bit of a sense of loss amongst the fans that, we've lost our legend and he's done what he's done for us. Now it's over, where do we go next? And I suppose my own personal feeling was apprehension more than anything. I was apprehensive about what direction do the club go next. It's a massive turning point for the club now. This has to be done properly, or we'll be back to square one again within 2 years, 3 years. So, interim manager, I wasn't really interested in. I was hoping that we get someone in straight away, but knowing the position we were in, he was just after going overnight. There wasn't a whole pile available. Even looking at the bookies, the odds on who was possibly coming in was fairly grim reading. We went through stages, I suppose. We went through stages where 1 second it was Zidane, then it was Rodgers, then it was Pochettino. And I think most lads had kind of resigned themselves to the fact that, yeah, Pochettino is likely to come in with Carrick taking over as interim boss, but the interim boss being Carrick didn't really excite anybody because realistically, if you just let Ole go and you've brought in his number 2 as interim boss, what's changed? You have the same coach and staff, you have the same potentially same ethos and mindset. So Carrick to most people would be a kind of an Ole 2.0. Then the Rangnick thing broke out of nowhere. And excitement, I suppose, was the main excitement and shock in a way. Excitement that we've got this new guy coming in who no one really knows a whole pile about him, but he's got a massive reputation in football. And shock that United have done something right for a change, where we've looked at. They're not just looking at the next 6 months, they've looked at the next 6 months with a 2-year caveat where he comes in as a consultancy role, which now, to his credit, he demanded himself. It's a bonus for all of us because it looks to put a man with a football brain in a position where we need football people, not business people. Someone with a mindset of, I only care about what happens on the pitch. I'm only looking at what happens results-based, performance-based, tactical-based. We need that big time. Yeah, it's although it's not 100% confirmed yet, it looks like to be a very clever piece of business by United for a change.
It's the kind of character that I wish was at the club when Louis van Gaal was in charge. Someone of his ethos, someone of his football thinking. And I think that's why this 2-year role afterwards will be big for the man that comes in the summer, whether it's Ten Hag, whether it's Mauricio Pochettino, we don't know yet. There's a few names doing the rounds, and I suspect towards now and the end of the season, whoever does well in Europe, the manager of that team, if there's a likelihood of him coming to Manchester United, his name will probably be put into the ranks as well, unless it's Jurgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola or Thomas Tuchel again. But Brian, like ultimately the biggest problem with this club and what we voiced their anger towards for years is that these decisions are usually business made. Ultimately, with like the business and making money being the ultimate aim. That's how this club is run. But with someone like Rangnick coming in and Woodward potentially leaving his position at the end of the year, maybe going on to a consultancy role. But with that happening, is this a sign that maybe Richard Arnold, who's likely to step in, has told the club that I don't want this hands-on approach with football matters because I'm out of my depth? He's taken a step foot back, and that he wants someone like Rangnick in, and maybe that's why now they've made that decision, because we know in the last 5 years they've spoken to Ragnick about a director role, but they didn't go with it because he probably wanted too much power. But this feels different.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's speculation, but you could speculate that Richard Arnold has realised, hang on a second, my forte is business. Just like Ed Woodward, let's give Ed Woodward credit, which is a kind of a dirty thing to do, but Ed Woodward is an absolute genius in the commercial and business side of things, probably second to none. If he'd stayed out of the football side of things, we probably wouldn't know a whole pile about him. We'd probably appreciate the job he does. But the fact that he got messed up and muddled up in the football side of things brought him into the limelight a bit and exposed him for his lack of knowledge and ability in that side. I think it's great if Richard Arnold sticks to the business and he's somewhere similar to Woodward in his abilities. That can only be good for the club. If he's clever enough and man enough to say the club needs someone with a football ethos to come in and do the football side of things, it can only be good for us. It just looks, I don't know, it's strange. We're so used to having the wrong decisions made and decisions made for the wrong reasons. It looks like the club actually knows what it's doing. Yeah, it looks like the club is actually saying, hang on a second, let's get football men to focus on the football, businessmen to focus on the business, and let's get back to being something that resembles a football club for a change. But obviously, knowing that the Glazers are involved in all this, there's always that little sneaky feeling of what are they up to, what's coming next, where's the butt?
Well, what's interesting for me too is I don't think Ragnick is someone that is going to let his reputation rust, in a sense that in 2 years' time, if he doesn't feel that his demands are being met, he could easily just park up, and that's terrible PR for the Glazers. So it's are they jumping into bed with the devil here from their perspective, or are they actually going to change and please the fans? Because I said this in the summer after Ronaldo joined, that signings weren't going to change the fans' attitude towards the owners. Never, because a lot more comes with that. You need results and you need so on. But if the clubs start acting like a club, it would make a big difference. That's the change we want, a football club. But as well with Ragnick, what our listeners are going to be looking forward to is the type of football we can expect. Now, from looking and reading into stuff and doing my research this week, everyone knows that he's the professor, the doctor of Greg's pressing, which you see Jurgen Klopp and Thomas Tuchel playing. So he's like a mentor for those guys. So we can definitely expect Manchester United to press. I think that's an interesting concept, Brian, because a lot of United fans don't quite understand what the press is because we haven't seen it before, in the last 10 or so years.
Yeah, 100%.
Players haven't been taught it. You heard Bruno Fernandes say a few weeks ago, we don't press. And I think it's going to be really, really interesting. A lot of people are questioning whether they can do it, but I do think this team is fit. I think they will buy into this manager's philosophy and so on. And I don't think it's going to be like Van Gaal and being boring. He likes playing attractive football, so we will be entertained. And Brian, with that coming into play, we have unbelievable players. People have said for some time that with a better coach, they would perform better, we get better results. Do you think we'll see a lift between now and the end of the season? Because we did want a challenge for the title. That's probably out of the question now.
I think people need to sit back and I know we all want to see progress instantly. I mean, it's the modern world. Everyone wants instant success and instant results. But I think people need to realize too, if this guy is coming in, he's changing things. He's bringing a whole different perspective on how it works. And to do that in a football club doesn't happen in 6 months. To do that efficiently and to do that properly, long lasting, that actually starts in the academy. That starts with putting that ethos and mindset of his Gergen press or his this philosophy and text tactic. You start breeding that through the academy, so it just becomes a part of the fabric. The players in the academy coming through are trained and drilled in what the first team are doing. So you're not going to get an academy in 6 months that are going to be playing his pressing system. So a little bit of patience will be required. You're going to have the first team going from Ole's tactics or whatever you want to call the system that Ole was trying to play, the counter-attacking system, and then changing it and flip-siding it and going into a heavy, high press, hard, fast press from the forwards to the midfield, pressing in clusters, trying to force mistakes high up the field, which leads to its own issues, obviously, in defence if you get caught. But I don't think you can expect it to be instant. I don't think I can expect the rest of the season to be flourished with trophies. But can I see an upturn in performances? Certainly, yeah. Maybe not game 1, game 2, game 3, game 4, but as the season goes on, I think as his methods are installed in the team, you'll definitely see a better style of football, and definitely a more attractive style of football, which we've all wanted. The only thing I do feel that I'm apprehensive about this Rangnick appointment is like when the summer comes and he steps upstairs and we approach a manager to come in, they've got to come in under the guise and under the guidance of this guy. So they've got to accept the fact they're taking the role of Manchester United manager, but they're taking that role to play a system that Ralf Rangnick wants us to play, not that Mauricio Pochettino or Zinedine Zidane wants to play, or whatever other name is linked. So that could also be a stumbling block in negotiations with future managers, where the manager is coming in and he's saying, right, well, this is what I want to do, and the club and Ralf are saying, well, this is how we work, this is what we do. Are you on board with that? So it might limit slightly. It might limit what managers take the job. It might suit more of a Ten Hag who's used to that developing youth and working in certain strict systems. He might be the man to come in afterwards. Or it could be a complete and utter curveball, which was mentioned to me during the week. There was Michael Carrick sit beside him for 6 months. There was Michael Carrick then take over in the summer under Ralf Rangnick, and they work together as a pair. There's a lot of ifs, ands, buts, and maybes of what could come in the future. I don't think it's as clear cut as we just turn around and go, summertime, Mauricio Pochettino comes in, Ralf Rangnick now sits upstairs and just watches over transfers. That's not how he's going to work. He's a bit of a nerd and a bit of a geek for detail. He wants to be involved in everything. So there's a lot to think about. There's a lot of exciting and uncertain times ahead regarding what's going to happen with the team and who's going to lead us. But I suppose uncertainty and excitement is what we always wanted, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, getting back to more serious chat, you were on your travels again during the week to Villarreal. 2-0 win. How did you get on?
Yeah, it was a great trip. It was a little bit better than the last one because at least I made my flight this time. So a bit less pressure and a bit less rushing around through a country I wasn't too familiar with. But it was great, yeah. We had well planned before we left. There was about 36, 38 of us that were going over together from Ireland. So we had a little WhatsApp group chat. The boys organised a coach from Barcelona. We flew Dublin, Barcelona. Then from Barcelona, we had to get down to Villarreal, which is about 2.5 hours away. The boys booked a coach. So as you can imagine, 36 or 8 Irish lads on a 54-seater bus going from Barcelona to Villarreal. It was going to be a very subdued affair with lads reading books and catching a few hours sleep. I had a bit of a heavy weekend the weekend before we left. And when we were about to leave, the night before we were about to leave, I had a little moment of clarity and we're like, hang on, they're not going to be reading books and getting an hour's sleep. These boys are mental. My body and physical and mental health can't handle this. So I popped on the internet, hired myself a little car, and one of the lads jumped in with me. I took a nice little romantic drive down the east coast of Spain in calm and peace. It was great.
Lovely. That's not very like you, Brian.
No, I think I'm becoming a bit more of an adult. I think Atlanta might shook me up a bit.
Tell me about the police presence.
Well, yeah, do you know, it was funny. Like the morning and day we were there during the day while the sun was shining. Now it was absolutely bucketing rain when we landed and we're driving down. So that was a bit of a dampener, thinking, Jesus Christ almighty, we'll have to go into Spain. And it's absolutely lashing rain. But luckily enough, it cleared up. The sun came out. We were inside in Villarreal. Now, Villarreal is a small place. It's not exactly a big, massive metropolis city. It's a handy little sized, large town, we call it, for all the world. We were a little bit spread out in comparison to Bergamo. In Bergamo, we were all together in kind of the one street and the one area. The noise was deafening all through the evening. Villarreal, it was more of a kind of a sleepy Spanish town where we had a cluster of fans in one area, a cluster of fans in another area, a little square. I never really took much notice of the police at all until we decided to leave for the ground. In the square where we were having a few drinks and having a chat and having a bit of sing-song, there was no presence whatsoever. Everything was cool and easy and calm. We're heading down to the ground. As you got to the ground, there were these physically fit, strong, muscle-bound coppers with their chest out and tennis balls under their arms to give you the impression that these boys wanted to headbutt you the first time they saw you. So you were walking down a footpath, and I was walking down the side of the ground, and I stepped off the footpath because there was a person coming towards me, and next thing I got absolutely buckled back onto the footpath. And I looked and I was like, what Jesus Christ was that? there was this big copper staring at me with venom. And I was like, I'm just getting off the footpath. You move now, and drove me on again. Like, Jesus Christ, man. I'm literally have to walk off a footpath. But that was the way it was from the second we got towards the ground. There was just this moody atmosphere amongst the cops. They were staring you down. There was gangs of them there. They were all really like proper aggressive looking. Even when they were just stood there, you knew they were waiting to go. They were mad for it to kick off. They really were. They were just mad to lash into people. We got into the ground. They checked our flags a couple of times. They checked them. They take them out again. They'd unwrap them, read them. Then they were confirming with their translator to make sure that Red Army wasn't anything bad to having a flag, or that late May 1999 wasn't offensive. Got past all that nonsense. Then we got in and we got herded up into the upper tier by very approachable policemen who were basically just shoving us. Got up into the stand and there was a gang of them. I mean, it was really weird. Like, it's typical Spanish policing. There was just a line of them through the middle of the upper stand.
I read something during the week that Leicester fans and a lot of English fans experienced this across Spain and stuff. And I think the Spanish police, someone wrote something that they put it down to they're dressed like English hooligans and they just brand them all the same. It's crazy because this, like, United fans are brilliant, but if it hits the wrong group, it's potential for disaster. Because it's straight away up front, it's a bullying tactic. And they can't expect everyone to react well to that.
No, and historically, United fans away in Europe, we've got a great reputation as being well behaved.
Yeah.
Not really causing trouble in stands and stuff, So it's a bit overkill, but like even the Villarreal fans, the Europa League final, the United fans and the Villarreal fans drank together, had a great time together. There was no issue whatsoever. Before the game, we had a bunch of Villarreal fans come down and they were videoing us United fans chanting and singing, and they were having a bit of crack. Like between the Villarreal fans and the United fans, there was nothing but camaraderie, a bit of banter and a bit of over and back, and no issue whatsoever. Like, there was absolutely no animosity between each other. The only animosity that happened was when you got to the ground and the cops were trying to fucking throw their weight around, and they're trying to force something to happen. And like, they tucked into two older gentlemen who were standing in the steps area in between the seating. They asked them to move, and look, obviously the boys didn't move for a second or whatever, but they absolutely just tore into them. I mean, these lads were in their 50s or 60s. Forgive me if they were younger, but I think they were 50s or 60s. I've seen videos of it. Like, they absolutely drove them around the place and tore into them for absolutely zero. That's the kind of messing you're expecting with these Spanish cops. So yeah, they were very aggressive. They were very in your face. They were very much confrontation. But I suppose, look,
surely, right, an operation like that for a big Champions League match, it would only make sense. You mentioned beforehand when they were in the square and wherever you were drinking, there was camaraderie there between both groups of fans. Surely an operation like that should be led by one of the members of that force being around the city to see how the fans are behaving. And if they'd seen that, they'd say, nothing to worry about tonight, lads. Nothing to worry about.
100%.
Do you know, if there's war in the city, if there's trouble in the city, well, then they up their ante. But that doesn't make any sense, and it's sending a bad message. And it's not just United fans that have complained about it; Leicester fans as well, and a number of fans throughout England that have been travelling throughout Europe. Brian, Michael Carrick, what did you make? What do you make of his first game in charge? Did you remember watching it?
I do, yeah. Would you believe I actually only had 2 points the whole time? I told you I'm after turning into an adult in Italy. I'm a new man.
Mature.
I'm retired. Matured, yeah. I suppose I felt with Carrick, it was as I said earlier, it was only a 2.0. I mean, nothing's going to change in a matter of a few days. So he's not going to go in and change into a complete different system. It was similar performance. It was similar tactics. It was similar to watch. The first half was absolutely shit. The second half was a hell of a lot better. The two subs he brought on with Bruno and Rashford definitely changed the game. I think Villarreal got a bit tired. Our lads came in with a bit of fresh legs, and we just nabbed them twice. But it was nothing new, was it? It was the same performance, really. It was depending on a couple of moments of brilliance from a couple of players together, and that was it.
I think the main thing I'd say the Carrick got right was in the second half, even when we started to push on, we were still very organised defensively. What you would say, even looking at Champions League last season, that terrible night in Turkey, when we conceded that awful goal, it showed something that happened a lot under Solskjaer, that we could go on attacks, but we get caught then. We get caught when we're on the attack. We weren't able to transition quick enough and defend a counter-attack. But last night, I think it was also the fact that Villarreal never really looked like scoring. I think Carrick noticed after 60 minutes, and then he decided to bring on the substitutions and start going for it. And tactically, you have to take your hat off to him. But there's no one saying that they seen that the other night that would start building excitement to see him take over for the rest of the season. And that's why they've gone with Rangnick, thankfully. Brian, if you were to compare your trip, what was the better city?
They were kind of different in ways. Bergamo was definitely louder before the game. The fans were in more of in one area together. But before the game was definitely louder and a better atmosphere. At the game itself, Villarreal was absolutely 5 out of 5. The noise was deafening at times. Like, the amount of people that have commented afterwards saying all we could hear was you lads on the telly. It was brilliant. 2 similar trips, I suppose. I had more time to relax in Villarreal, so I'll give Villarreal a 4 out of 5, dropping a point because Villarreal's a clip. Bergamo, I'll give it a 3 out of 5 because I had to travel half of Europe to get there. And
you probably learned more in Italy than you did in Spain, given you had to fucking travel through the majority of it due to a missed flight. Right, Brian, thanks so much for joining me this morning. United play Chelsea on Sunday. Give me a quick prediction for that one.
Apprehensive, flying over Sunday morning. Nerves already. I'd take probably this form we're in. I'd take a draw at the moment, to be honest with you. Just get it over and done with.
I think a draw would be a good result.
Yeah, I'll go 1-1,
Yeah, I think a draw would be a good result. I would definitely take that. You would look at what Chelsea are doing in Europe, even against the likes of Juventus. They're a really strong side at the moment. So if we can get a draw away from home, Rangnick then come in for Arsenal, get the ball rolling and kickstart our season. Brian, thanks for joining me.
Cheers, Dale.
Thank you.